Hey YouTube, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to dive into the exciting world of sports photography. With football starting, I've had a lot of questions about how do you get this, how do you do that, what shutter speed do I use for this, what do I use for that. So I'm going to run through a quick video of just some essentials, and then I'll run through my settings for what I do for football. And I'll show some examples on the screen here while we're going through football and some other sports. So let's get you started off on the right foot here. Let's talk about some gear. One of the biggest things that helped me out was when a guy told me, hey, you need a monopod. You got to have one. You're standing here for the whole game, holding this camera. It's going to get heavy. Get a good monopod. So I bought a good monopod at the time. I've used it ever since. It's one of the better investments I've made. It still goes to all ball games with me, and almost none of the other gear is the same. So we'll go ahead and knock that out first. Now, you don't have to have the latest and greatest camera or the fastest lens in the world or the longest lens in the world. Just some good gear works. Some of these alternative lenses, the 70 to 200s and the or any of the focal ranges you want to look at by Sigma or Tamron. Those are some good lenses. They make great stuff these days. Their glasses on par. You don't need an expensive camera to get the shot. You do need a DSLR or a mirrorless camera. The newer ones, you can get away with more noise or more ISO with less noise. Though, that does help there. But the editing software today is fantastic when it comes to cleaning up an image. I'll show you one here that was shot at a shutter speed of 1000 and ISO above 4000, and it's a great picture. It sold several times. So, you're going to have to get away from, I can't bump my ISO up. When you're shooting in these dark gyms and these dark football fields or baseball fields, you're going to have to push that ISO up and push it up farther than you're comfortable with, and find out what you can do in post. And when you do that in post once or twice, then you'll get more comfortable, and you'll try pushing a little bit more, and you'll get more comfortable, and then you'll see, this really does work. So give it a try. Take your DSLR out or your mirrorless camera out. Probably mirrorless these days. A good lens to start with is a 70 to 200. On a football field, that can get from the hash to you. Anything past that or anything past midfield, you're going to have to crop in. You're probably going to get too much grain. So I'd be worried about that. If it's in the daytime, you're shooting like a Saturday morning ball games for Pee Wee or something like that, then maybe you can reach out and get a little bit more with that 200 millimeter and then crop into it. Give it a try. See what you're comfortable with and the way your photos look there. I like using a 2.8 lens. All the shots that I'm going to show you here were shot at 2.8. You just need that fast glass on these dark fields in the dark gyms or dark convention centers. Like I shoot a lot of volleyball, and the travel volleyball is all in a convention center, and those are super dark. There's never good lighting there. 2.8 lens if you can swing it. Like I said, look at the Sigma lenses, look at the Tamron lenses. Try to learn about your body. Get used to it. Learn what the fastest autofocus settings are so you can get those shots with these kids moving down the field. You can focus in and get a good crisp shot. Look at the different settings and see what you can do and what you can tweak and what makes sense in each situation. So be familiar with your gear. Know what it is. Like on mine, I turn stabilization off. I know this is a big question for a lot of people. Some people leave it on, some people leave it off. I'm shooting at 1,000th of a second and up to 2,000ths of a second sometimes if I can get away with it. I turn that stabilization off. It's not going to make a difference. The shutter speed's quick enough, it's going to hit, and it's going to get in there and we're going to get the shot, and it's going to be crisp. Now, let's talk about timing and composition. This is a big one. If you can get to know the players on a team and you know who's going to do what and who's going to be coming to the edge in a football game or who's going to be making the tackles, it makes it a little bit easier to follow that person around the field, and you get some of those good action shots. Now, if you're shooting certain players and you need, certain shots of each one, you need to know that player and know what, where their highlight reels come from, what position they play, what's going to be the most exciting part of their game. And don't forget, after the play, there's a lot of excitement, a lot of emotion. Get that emotion. When you get that, that can be the shot that the kid loves more than anything. They're hyped, and that's the winner for them. So keep shooting. Once the play's done, don't put the camera down. See what develops there. Tell the whole story. And by telling the whole story, you're going to connect with the kids, with the athletes, with the parents, or with the program. That emotion is what really drives a program forward a lot of times, so they love to see that. Once you get your photos back, post-process, Lightroom, Photoshop, use the tools. Use that noise reduction. Add a little bit of exposure to the shot. Make it pop. Get it looking good. And then show it off. For those high ISO shots, use the noise reduction. I know I've talked a lot about that. Used to. Back in the day, we didn't have that. We shot, like when I was shooting for Max Prep years ago, they wanted us to use a flash mounted on our monopod to get a crisp image. I'll show you one or two of those here. And that was what we had to do to get those shots, because we didn't have noise reduction then that, would look good and look good in print. Now we do, so take advantage of that. Now I'm going to turn the page here and get a little bit more specific for football photography, since here it is football season. These tips are for any level, but it's tailored more to the high school and people shooting with like a 70 to 200 lens. You need a minimum shutter speed of 800. I try to stay at 1,000 and not go below that. If I can cheat and get more than that, I will. But at 1,000th of a second, you can get the football without a blur when it's in motion, and you can get those players when they're running with both feet off the ground, and some really cool shots like that. Sometimes, depending on the position you're trying to photograph, you can slow it down a little bit more than that. This is again where you know your players and know what they're doing. On the lineman, sometimes you can get away with a 700 shutter speed or something even as slow as 640. I've gotten away with before on some of those guys. Know what you're shooting and make your adjustments before the play. Then, if you're coming back to like a quarterback or a running back, you got to get back up to 1,000th, or a kicker trying to get that extra point. Sometimes you need over 1,000 for that. So fill that out. Know where you need to be. Again, these are good base levels. If you can stay within this, it'll make a big difference. Cropping an image, we all love to do it, but just know when you crop into that image, you're going to give it more grain, and you will see a less sharp image when you crop in on a shot that happened all the way across the field. So keep that in mind. Try to stay in your zone on the field. Like I said, for 70 to 200, I like to stay midfield to my side. Really like to be at that hash to my side. Some of these stadiums are using these LED lights now, so you may see, if you're using a silent shutter, you may get some banding. Make sure you turn on that anti-flicker mode, and that'll take care of that for you. You don't want to shoot a whole ball game and come back with stripes that look like a rolling shutter from an old TV show when the TVs used to roll. So keep that in mind as well. On my Canon, I use case 3, and I have it at +2. On these newer cameras, you can take that autofocus and you can make it quicker or slower. Also, I make sure that I have it to auto detect people and not cars or animals. That'll help getting that focus as well. I use back button focus on all my cameras, but especially for sports, I find I get more keepers that way. And I use a single point, and usually I try to keep it in the middle of the frame if possible. I didn't talk a lot about ISO here, but generally what I do is I'll set that shutter speed at the 800, 1000, 1200. My aperture is going to be at 2.8, and my ISO will be whatever it needs to be to get the appropriate exposure for the shot. If it needs to be 4,000, it'll be 4,000. If it needs to be 3,200, it'll be 3,200. Just whatever the shot calls for in the stadium that I'm shooting in. So I hope that helps. If you have any questions, if I left anything out, or anything you'd like to talk about, hit me up in the comments below, and get out there and shoot.
Hey YouTube, thanks for watching my dance video.